Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Off the Cuff. My name is Fred,
Right.
and we got a little quickie for you today. At least we're hoping it's going to be a quickie. You know how we get. So I'll let Brian do his regular rundown, and we'll get to it.
Well, there's been two questions, or one question really, that's gone through both conservative and liberal, pundits. Is if we're ready for a national divorce, me and Fred talked about this a little bit. I think we might have differing opinions on this one, so it'll be good to see and kind of talk it out and see where we come from.
It'll be a surprise for everyone because I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, who knows? But and another thing is everyone knows the AOC went to the gala event where it was like $35,000 for a ticket and had a tax rich dress on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and that'll hopefully be the show. As you can probably tell, I'm in a new location, so that's why we've not been posting, and it's not going to be a long one for this one either because we're not really prepared. So, the game Alabama versus Gators was on the 18th, so we're gonna have to get a little bit out of the way. It'll kind of be a part for this one. So, why don't you explain the score and what your thoughts were on the game?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 31-29, right?
Yeah,
that was the final score. We didn't do like a live stream or anything, but we did get together at Brian's house and watch the game with a couple other people, and that was a hell of a game. I mean, let's be honest. Most people go into games against Alabama and they assume that Alabama is going to end up stomping them into the dirt, and I honestly am just happy that it wasn't a blowout. And honestly, Florida played better than I thought they were going to. They were early on, it was kind of questionable. Obviously, like by the time I got to Brian's house, it was already 21-7. And I was like, crap, this is going to be a bad day, especially I'm in an Alabama fan's house. This is going to be awful. And the game was pretty clean. There was only a couple things both directions where we were like, that was a garbage call. But for the most part, the game was pretty clean and down the middle. And it literally came down to the wire. I mean, Florida missed the 2-point conversion that would have sent it to overtime, and they still managed to shut down Alabama's offense and get the ball back. And Emory Jones just couldn't make it happen. Alabama's defense clenched up tight and shut down any last-second hopes. So it was a hell of a game, though. I mean, I'm fairly confident it's going to be an SEC championship game rematch, and one of those two teams is going to end. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing Florida wins next time, but Florida definitely showed they can beat Alabama. They just have to actually put their feet in the ground, their cleats into the ground, and push on and do it. So, I'm excited. One of those two teams is going to be in the playoffs fighting for the national championship because they both showed they are way too good.
And it's going to be Alabama at least. So, I mean, there were certain plays where, it was, some flags on their team where we're both like, okay, come on, that's not right. That's not a good call.
Come on.
There was times where you were like, yeah, that's not a good call when Alabama had the ball and they got a flag. I mean, we were pretty it's more sportsmanlike. It was
civil.
Very civil, minus the screaming at, the players.
A little bit of screaming, but not at each other.
No, not at each other, which I believe it was a really good game. I think it was a game that humbled Alabama. It was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't just go into every game thinking we're just going to wipe the floor with everybody. We need to actually practice and focus and play the game and not just, we got this. We're already 21-3, and Florida's gonna just lie down and it's gonna be like a blowout for Alabama. But I think it's a really good game for Alabama to see. Okay, we came this close to losing by 3 points. If they got that conversion, we would have a totally different game on our hands.
I am just hoping that wasn't the wake up call that Alabama needed to start kicking everybody in the teeth again. And honestly, and no excuses. I really wanted to see what Richardson could have done against the Alabama defense. I think I'm in the majority when I say that Emory Jones is. I mean, he's a talented player, like he's an athletic player, but he made a lot of questionable decisions, and the accuracy was not there a couple times when it was important. There were a couple times where he held the ball too long, thinking he was going to run, and it was not the right idea to do, and it didn't work out for him. So,
Is this his first year playing? Because I know it's Bryce Young's first year as well.
he played in and out with I can't believe my brain just shut off. The kid that just went to the Bears, Trask. He played with Trask. Trask was the starter at that point, and he was flopping in and out. I believe this is his first year as a starter because he flopped with Trask, and then when Ryan Philippe was there, I think he was red shirt or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is his first opportunity, I think, to really have, like, this is his team going into the season, and Richardson came out of nowhere and really stepped it up and kind of made everybody question it. But he had a sprain or a strain somewhere, so they just kept him out of the game. So
Anyways,
well, I was just gonna say it'll be interesting, and a bet's a bet, and a word is your word. So here shortly in the next episode or so, I will be fulfilling the obligation of the bet.
Yes.
So,
but anyways, well, let's go ahead and get on to our two topics here. We're going to go ahead and start with let's start on something that we both agree on with the Met Gala and AFC. So do you kind of want to introduce that?
So as we are hopefully mostly all aware, because it's been everywhere, even in non-political circles, they've been talking about it. But a few weeks ago, they had this Met Gala in New York, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez decided that this was where she was going to take her stand on the rich by going to a gala that costs $30,000 per ticket. And from what I'm reading from multiple articles, just trying to get the numbers right, a seat at the table was like $200,000. And there's been rumors swirling that because she was accompanied by the person who made the dress, and no one can say for sure if she actually paid for the dress, if it was borrowed. There's a lot of talk that I'm seeing that maybe the designer let her use it for free just to get her design out there for the world to see. And from what a lot of the rumor mill is that she supposedly paid for the dress designer to go for free as well. So, I mean, if you're talking, I don't know how these things work. I mean, obviously 30,000 a ticket is obvious. That's 60 grand there. I don't know if I would assume $200,000 to sit at the table is probably per person. So, you're talking about $460,000 that she just dropped on going to this gala so she could, spend all of her rich person money to stand up and fight against the rich with her tacky ass dress. So, I mean, I think this was, people were going crazy on Twitter and just roasting her. There was a lot of people supporting her, but there was a lot of people on Twitter and Instagram and all that just crushing her, basically saying that, it's nothing more than, a dog and pony show. It's nothing more than, she's completely out of her mind. She's completely disconnected from the reality of the scenario. And I don't think that's inaccurate at all. I mean, you literally wore a dress that says tax the rich, and you're trying to lump yourself in the group that's not part of the rich. And you obviously are doing one of the richest rich people things you could possibly be doing. So
yeah, I was actually reading a thing from the New York Times that says typically New York politicians are invited for free. You don't have to pay. But regardless, even if that is true, if it's not, I don't know. That's according to the New York Times. Still, if the rumors are true about her dress designer coming, that's $35,000. It's expensive. It's I don't think she paid for the dress either, because that's pretty much free publicity.
Right.
I can't say it, but free advertisement for the design. So I mean, it's a thing called champagne socialism. These people talk about socialism, how great it is, and we need to have the government help all the poor people in the world, and we go to these fancy galas where it's $35,000 to buy a ticket. Nobody except celebrities, no one off the street would be able to buy that, unless you saved up probably for your entire lifetime. I mean, most people, that's a year's worth of work.
Well, and reading through some of these things, some of the fans, AOC fans, dubbed her look as simply iconic and called her an anti-capitalist queen. At one point, yeah, so one supporter tweeted, AOC wearing this dress at an event full of rich people. This woman has more balls than any man in Congress. And some of these people are the ignorance just seeps out of their pores, and they just can't stop themselves. They are so radically impressed by the most asinine, ridiculous things. Like they are impressed by the absolute bare minimum effort at anything. And when somebody actually puts real effort in because you don't like the message, even though it is real effort and it's doing the right thing, you criticize them and you shit all over them. The reality is, her wearing this dress to a room full of rich people is there's no balls involved in that. There's no you're not like taking a stand, and you're not like sitting in the back of in the front of the bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is you're not taking this massive stand. You are literally going to a place full of rich people where no one's going to touch you, no one's going to say a word to you, no one's going to confront you, because nobody wants to look like the bad guy on camera. Not
even that. It's just people even agree with her on that. And most wealthy people that can't afford it, tax accountants, and can find dozens and dozens of loopholes, they do pay their fair share, I believe, and don't need
an exorbitant amount of taxes.
Yeah, but they also don't need to be taxed at 100% either. It's not feasible. There's a good video that it's a little older, but basically this guy breaks down, if the government took 100% of everyone's profits from like movies, toy corporations, and everything, they'd be able to fund the government for 1 year. Plus, they would also have to have people pay an additional, I think it was like $35. So, I mean, taxing 100% on estate taxes, death, inheritance.
It's not the end all be all people think it is. That's the problem.
It wouldn't even fund any of that. But
yeah,
I do feel that rich people do pay a lot, yes. But they're not. They also have tons of accountants that probably save them billions and billions of dollars too. So,
well, the problem is too, though, and not to get off on a side tangent, but the problem is that you talked about these loopholes that these rich people take advantage of, and yes, there are going to be some that they take advantage of because they've got money, like some of the donation exemptions and stuff that they get. Like, you may not have the money to donate what they donate, but even if you're not getting it on a large scale, these tax exemptions are almost all of them are available to everybody. You can take advantage of them. The problem is they require that you do things throughout the year to earn these tax exemptions, like donate money, donate clothing, donate this, buy that, give up this. And you have to sacrifice. And these rich people, obviously, they have a lot more to give, but they go out there and they do these things that earn them these tax exemptions, and you're not just handed tax exemptions sometimes. But there are some that you just are able to take advantage of. We get the child care credit, or the income tax credit, or whatever the heck it is. You get X amount of dollars per kid. There's all kinds of things going on that regular people can take advantage of too. But going back to this thing here, like, you're not making anybody sweat. Like, you're not making anyone sweat. No, like this BS, ironic as hell, dog and pony show here is so out of touch, but it's no different than when we're at work and you put someone in handcuffs, and then people start pulling out the cell phones and recording you. And now that they're on camera, they want to be a hard ass, and they want to be like, oh, you gotta take these cuffs off. I'll beat your ass. Take them off. Come on, hit me, fool. Take the. because you're talking tough because you know no one's going to do anything. It's very easy to walk into a room and try to make a statement when no one's going to say anything to you, because no one's going to want to be the villain. No one's going to want to get in your face and be that guy. This young 31-year-old female who pulled up her bootstraps and was a bartender and made it as a New York congresswoman, and she's being berated by this old white man that's rich, and we need to take down the tyranny of the rich. No one's going to do that. No one's going to do that. You're going to walk in there and you're going to sit down and you're going to have your $200 or $2,000 plate of food at the table, and no one's going to say a peep to you, and they're going to be taking pictures of you, and all the attention is going to be on you, and that's it. That's it. That is not uncomfortable. That is not awkward. She thrives on the attention. And as you go down further, so obviously there's a ton of detractors and there's a ton of supporters, because there are just mindless people that blindly follow this lady. No matter how many stupid things come out of her mouth, they still praise her like she's Einstein. But you scroll all the way down to the bottom here, and the Black Lives Matter of Greater New York is kind of taking a crap all over AOC over this, because they accused her of being performative and not very socialist, because what people, as they're going through all these praising articles talking about how amazing she is, they fail to mention that there was protesters outside, and these protesters, who are not as rich as AOC, do not have the, not get out of jail free card, but they get the special treatment from the public and stuff, because they're Congress people and they don't have the special things being thrown at them. These Black Lives Matter protesters are out there. Actually, some of them, not all of them, I'm sure, but there are people there that are not wealthy, and some people probably have a little better money, but you're out there protesting and you're getting arrested because of their, like, whatever's going on with the protests. And I don't have a whole lot of information on the protests. They have a tendency to call riots protests, but I don't know what was going on here. But they were arrested taking an actual stand while AOC wore a borrowed dress, and she wore a borrowed dress and went in there in the situation where everybody was staring at her and everybody was oohing and ahhing over her. So looks like, just I clicked on a link for that information real quick. It says multiple people were arrested outside the 75th Met Gala Monday night at the time, as they demonstrated on behalf of Black Lives Matter. The annual benefit gala for the Museum of the Arts returned this year after the coronavirus in 2020 closed it. Some protesters clashed with police as authorities tried to clear the demonstration. The NYPD has a total financial allegation of $11 billion per year. The money goes toward, okay, so we're getting off on another topic here, but yeah, it was turning very rapidly into Black Lives Matter versus the police out there. So it escalated probably much more than what AOC's thing did. But there are people out there doing what they believe is to be an actual stand, and you're in there wearing a dress and flaunting for everybody this big bold statement that nobody's listening to. Like, nobody's listening to. And the only people that are out here screaming tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich are people that are A, probably never going to have a penny to their name in their entire lives, or B, have no idea how much they pay in taxes versus how much other people or rich people pay in taxes. The amount of money, if you look at if you actually Google it and you do some research and you look at the tax rates of, like, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Obama, Bernie, all them, like, you'd be surprised at how little those people pay. But those people are not truly, like, rich.
Yeah,
those people
they're political rich. I mean, they get they're career politicians. Besides Donald Trump, who was obviously a president only for 4 years, both right. 4 years coming up. But yeah, he was the only person on that list that you've said that wasn't a career politician, who hasn't been in Congress or in some type of political power for most, if not all, their lives. I know Bernie Sanders was a couch surfer until he got into politics, and that's where he's at now, and he's got 5 homes. So,
and some of these rich people that they're screaming tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich, they already pay close to 50% of their salary per year in taxes. Now, yeah, does that maybe leave them with, $5 billion or whatever, yeah, sure, maybe it does. But if I went and taxed you 50% of your earnings, you'd be royal. Not you specifically, but most of the people screaming about this, you'd be up shit's creek. Like 50% of your wages, like you wouldn't be able to pay rent, you wouldn't be able to buy food, take care of your kids, you wouldn't be able to do nothing. So why is your money more important than their money? And they just have this false idea in their head that every rich person was given money by mommy and daddy. Nobody, in their mind, nobody earned what they made, they own. They've never worked for anything. It was just handed to them because they're having a hard time making money. So they must be cheating. And some of them do. We're not going to pretend that some of them don't, but it seems like some of these people that are screaming the loudest about this are like Al Sharpton, for example. Dude hasn't paid taxes in like 10 years. And why is he not getting arrested? Why is because if you or I didn't pay taxes for 10 years, we get arrested. So it's all a game. It heavily favors one side over the other politically. So I mean, 50% of taxes, you can say whatever you want. They keep saying they want rich people to pay their fair share, but they're not asking for what they're actually asking for with the words that come out of their mouth. What they're actually talking about is not taxing them their fair share. They're taxing them what they think is appropriate to make life easy on themselves. That's not fair. There's no world where I work my ass off, because these people think that because you're the owner of $1 billion company that your life is easy. You kick back and drink Mai Tais in the pool all day with half naked Playboy bunnies running around you all the time. That's not like half these dudes get. I mean, look at Donald Trump. All the people that were working underneath him as president, they all said the dude's he's like 70 something years old and he sleeps 3 hours a night and he gets up. He goes to bed after everybody. He gets up before everybody, and he's just trudges on. Like that's that mentality, that Trump Tower mentality. He can't sleep because he's not making money if he's sleeping. And some people just don't have the drive to work hard, and then they want to complain that it's someone else's fault. And that's why I am a firm supporter of a flat tax, and there are plenty of flaws to flat taxes. It's not perfect, but the reality is, if you make $50,000 a year and that guy makes $50 million a year, if we tax you both 20%, you are getting the same portion of your salary taken out, and the numbers, the dollar amount, the actual monetary value is going to be drastically different. So you get he paid way more than me, but everybody's paying their fair share. So, but that's what they do. They talk out the side of their neck. They preach and preach and preach, but they don't actually mean what they're saying, and they don't practice what they're preaching about. So
they'll go to these $35,000 events, say, hey, socialism, tax the rich, all that, and just go back to their 2-3 houses and just comfortably sit back and say the same thing. As you probably know, as probably anyone that watches any of these videos know, I'm very adamant against socialism and communism. So, I mean, this is just, it's lazy, yes. And I obviously don't like the messaging because it doesn't make sense.
Well, I know it doesn't look like it, but as someone whose grandmother grew up in Cuba and whose dad was basically born and raised in Cuba before coming here, and his first language was Spanish, I can tell you, no one who has ever lived through socialism thinks this is a good idea. The only people that think socialism is a good idea are the morons that have been fed this fairy tale of everybody gets treated fair and everybody gets treated equal and like it's false. It is 1000% false. Every single socialism, every single communism, every single time socialism has been tried, it has turned into communist regimes where they have absolutely been top to bottom fascists. Like they are worse than everything that they accuse Trump of being. So it's bad, and people die like endlessly. Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, all of them, you name it. They rise to power on these promises that you're gonna everything's going to be rainbow farts and unicorn kisses, and then you get there and it's like, nope, we can't even we can't even get bread from the bread line. We're going to starve today, kids. Sorry. Maybe we'll get up early next time. We'll eat tomorrow, maybe. And that's how it always ends.
Yeah, you gotta control political prisoners and dissidents, and you don't want free speech or anything like that, because you might change the system and the people in power use all that power. But yeah, my family has come from Russia. They came right before, uh, Stalin and the Soviets took over. So back in the Tsar era, part of my family came from there. Part of my family grew up in Czechoslovakia under the Iron Curtain. So I mean, yeah, just hearing stories from my grandparents of how their grandparents had a lot of food just stored, just because it would be so rare for them to have anything. And I mean, and just reading historical texts, and looking at the Gulag system. I'm still in the middle of the Gulag archipelago, and just hearing some of these ways that they were treated, normal people were treated. It's just horrible.
And like you said, you have no freedom of speech. So you stand up against Stalin or Hitler, and you stand up and you try to say something, all these protests outside the gala for injustices. That's how the brown shirts come to your house and you go bye-bye and no one sees you ever again. Like that's what happens. And these people don't want to hear it. They think they get promised that it's going to be equal money for everybody. I'm not going to have to work, and I'm going to have as much money as the next person. Well, guess what happens if they make sure everybody has the same? So there's this old story, and it's kind of like a life lesson thing, and it's talking about classrooms, and this straight A student works his tail off and studies, and he gets an A, and the teacher ends up taking his A and splitting it in half and giving him a C. So the person who got the F could pull up to a C, and blah, blah, blah. So he eventually gets pissed off and gets frustrated and stops studying as hard, stops working as hard. And all of a sudden now he gets a C. Now all of a sudden the curve starts going down and everybody in the class fails, because why am I going to continue to break my back and have this person reap the benefits? And that's how socialism always plays out. It always plays out because it breeds laziness. It breeds laziness because who wants to keep working when half your shit goes to somebody else that decides they don't want to work? I mean, who?
Work as hard as the next guy, when if you just work as hard as him, you just get the same thing.
50% effort, 50% or less at best. 50% is all you get out of that, and most of that is just forced. At some point you don't have a choice, and that's what we're dealing with right now, is these people. Like, this was the opportune time. And you know what, we're not going to get into discussion about whether COVID is real or the pandemic is real or any of that crap, but the reality is one political party saw this as an opportunity to jump on the wagon and really hammer down and drive things home. I mean, it has been over a year and a half of them doing everything they desperately and possibly can to make the citizens of this country more reliant on the government. It's gotten worse and worse every single day. They push and they push and they push, and people are getting more and more comfortable. We are in a generation of people that are lazy as hell, and they want everything for free. They want instant gratification, and it is the worst possible thing, because what is the government going to do? Give it to you for free and instant gratification. You don't have to wait for it. And they're going to hook, line, and sinker. These people just eat that shit up. Like,
oh, I don't have to do anything. Oh, I just get paid $1,000 a week just to be, alive. Sure, why not?
I mean, work sucks. Nobody likes going to work every single day. I mean, you have days where you don't want to be there, and it sucks. Like, it happens, but you still have to go do your shit, and you have to earn your money. Because if you don't, that Stalin. That's what you get. That's what you get. So, in short, in summary, AOC doesn't know what she's talking about. She's a moron, and the dress was ridiculous. The dress was stupid. It was poorly timed. It was not this genius political grandstanding. It was nothing more than a dog and pony show where she could have the cameras and the attention on her while people that were trying to preach the same story outside were getting arrested. So she is a scumbag.
Okay, so with those final notes in mind, we're going to go ahead and transition to our next topic, which I think we're going to have a little more to discuss. So I've recently I've listened to conservative podcasts, so shocker, right? But one of them brought up Sarah Silverman, who is definitely not on the right. That is definitely for sure. But anyways, she had this to say on her podcast.
Maybe a negative thought, but or maybe a positive one. I don't know. But if people aren't getting along, like in relationship, they break up. You know, so like, why don't we just finally just realize that these states aren't working and like divide up into like 2 or 3 countries of like USA 1 and USA 2. And they can be USA 1. Like the conservatives can be USA 1 because they love being number 1 and it means something to them. And I'd love to have that be theirs. They can be USA 1, we'll be USA 2, and we'll be allies. And you'll come over here and we'll go over there. And, you know, when you come to many times when you go to a different country, you have to get a vaccine.
Okay, so, you know, she wanted to make America 1 and America 2. So basically separate the 2 United States who don't agree with each other. And this has been this, you know, a very decisive time period, but I believe there's been others previous in our history, and we've gone through this. So what is your opinion on a national separation, divorce, making 1 or 2 new nations out of the current states? What is your opinion before I express mine?
I mean, that's a rough one because, you know, I really think that this is something like things have deteriorated beyond probably what we've ever seen in the past. But at the same time, I think that we've come back from nearly as bad in the past. I don't think that it's something that we necessarily need to give up on. But at the same time, I think we're now dealing with another, the people that we're opposing politically, we've not dealt with people that are so ignorant but yet so stubborn. Because back in the day, old school Democrats and old school Republicans, you wouldn't agree on everything, but you used to be able to get together and talk things out and discuss things. And this new wave of socialist Democrats has kind of really thrown a monkey wrench in cooperation between the political sides. I don't know that there's really any talking to them. I don't know that there's really any working with them. I mean, you reach out the olive branch and no one wants to hear it. They want it now and they want it their way. And their ideas are so off the charts, wacky, like wackadoodle, like crazy sometimes. They call things freedoms and rights that aren't freedoms and rights, and they try to take away other people's actual rights that are described in the Constitution. Like it's up is down, down is up. It's bizarre world, and I really don't think you can work with these people. I would hate to see the country split, for better or worse. I really just think there's absolutely no way that you can work with these people, and it's all over the place. And there's just no dealing with them half the time. They are, like I said, I would hate to see the country split. There's so many benefits. Like this is the greatest country in the world, but like I said, I don't think there's any working with them. and I don't want to see it happen. I would like to work through it with them. I don't know that that's going to be possible. I don't think they're willing to listen and accept what the reality of things are. They're so wrapped up in how they feel and all their emotions and stuff and what they want that it's just not going to. I don't think it's going to play out right.
So do you think there would be like a second civil war, or do you think like a peaceful transition to kind of like to start separating the country? Or I mean, how would you like to see the country go forward from here? If
we had no option and it was going to happen, I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone on the right side wants to. I mean, people talk trash in the comment sections and stuff, but I don't think anybody really wants to see a war. Maybe they're just prepared for it. But I think some of these leftists think that they have a chance if something like that breaks down. And it would realistically, it would be one-sided. Yes, there are liberals that have guns. Yes, there are liberals that train with their guns. But in general, most of the people on your side are not prepared. And, they like to poke fun, like, oh, these 35-year-old fat guys living out in the sticks, they think they can go to war. I'm like, it doesn't. Listen, there are plenty of fat, out of shape people that I go to work with that handle things just fine when the fight comes. Trust me. So don't get it twisted. Don't be fooled. Certain people are more prepared, and I don't want to see it come to that, and I don't think it should. Obviously, if this was inevitable and there was no way around it, obviously peacefully is the best way to go. But I think these people have this false idea that they're just going to they're going to separate from this country and the reality, and that they're going to be totally fine, because they have these arguments that, oh, California puts more money into the federal government than any other state, which is actually, I just looked it up before we were talking about it beforehand. That is statistically untrue. They're probably like 6th or 7th. But they also receive the most federal funding. And yeah, if you try to turn around and you try to play the game of, oh, well, if we break it down per person and how much money we actually got less just because we got less per person. But the reality is they got the most amount of money out of anybody, lump sum. And that's going to go away. That's going to go bye-bye. And honestly, I don't think any state, conservative or liberal, any state could survive well at first. I mean, maybe you make it eventually. I'm sure everybody will make it fine, but the reality is, like, it's going to be tough, and there's going to be starving. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's bad, and I think it's a terrible idea. I think people just need to suck it up. I love social media, but we've spent so much time with social media and all kinds of other things. No one knows how to talk to each other anymore. No one knows how to communicate. No one knows how to look through the other person's lenses when they're discussing things. And everybody wants me, now. And they don't violate my rights, but I'm going to violate yours because I disagree with you. And that's a recipe for disaster every time. So people need to pump the brakes and keep it together.
Yeah, and I mean, this is nothing new. It's just, every time there's an election, and a Republican wins, oh, California's going to secede. If a Democrat wins, oh, Texas is going to secede. I mean, we have this never-ending news cycle where it's like, oh, Texas wants to declare a secession, or California wants to declare this. I definitely don't think separating is a good idea. Even proponents on the right think it's a good idea. I don't think so. I think we should just start trying to go back to the original founding where, your state is kind of how you want to run. Each state is kind of like its individual country, but, the federal government can still, raise an army if it needs to, or, set up certain boundaries. But we also need to go back to, okay, we need to read the Constitution as if the document is dead and it was written how it was written at that point, and follow from there. Because going into different issues such as, abortion, that's kind of where a lot of people like separate, fracture, and then there's no real compromise. So, especially for the right hand left, because the right believes it's killing a human being, and the left believes that, it's a right. But I mean, it shouldn't be up to the state if the state of, California wants to make it legal, then they can make it legal. Doesn't mean people on the right can say, hey, you probably want to stop this because it's killing, and vice versa. But everything should go back to how it was originally planned, where the states would make laws that were not in the Constitution and decided from there. I mean, obviously there's going to be some exceptions.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though, when you said, we have to treat it like it's a non-living thing, and that's the problem. Is too many people on the left side, they believe that the Constitution is not a dead, inanimate object. They believe it is a living, breathing thing that, as time goes on, it can change, and it can't.
In a certain way, it can. It's a living document in the sense that it can change, as in, you get the two-thirds of the states to agree on something. I'm completely for that, but I'm talking about, reading the Constitution as it was written, the first 10 amendments.
Bill of Rights, right? So, and then that's my point: is they treat the entire document like it should be changed if they feel it needs to be. And there obviously changes get made, but those changes are things that typically are obviously for the greater good, like the betterment of everybody. Women being allowed to vote, Black people being allowed to vote, freeing of slaves, and all that stuff. All those things needed amendments to change because they were something that was not outlined in there in the first place the way it should be. And it put strict rules in there saying you can't do this because that violates someone else's God-given rights. So you look at those first 10 amendments, and that is concrete. Like that's not changing and molding. That is concrete, and it is designed that way. And there's a reason that they're written in the order that they're written in. It's because those things are important, and those are God-given rights that can't change. Now, there are exceptions and exemptions to everything. Obviously, we don't need to get into all that, but the reality is, if this is going to survive, this country is going to survive, people need to start looking at that document that as something that we can tweak to make it better, to give people more rights. The problem is they want to tweak. The Constitution is designed to make sure everyone's rights are granted and followed. Like the Constitution is not a document that gives us our rights. It forces the government to acknowledge that those rights are there and cannot be taken away. That is the point of the Constitution. The government has no right and no say in anything that, pertaining to those. Like you have to follow those rules. It's not a question.
We don't get
the government didn't grant us anything.
The government is only supposed to protect those. They're God-given rights that are endowed by our Creator, and the government needs to protect them.
And these amendments are designed to give people rights or to clarify things so you understand what's being said, and in giving rights. These amendments should not be designed to, and these bills should not be designed to be taking rights away from people, especially when they're like freedom of speech, right to bear arms, things of that nature. You should not be trying to change these things. And that's the biggest, I think the biggest hang up that people are running into, is because so many of these people on the left just want to drastically change the document and start taking rights away. And that's where you get the hang up. And that's where, you start having January 6th moments where people are, storming Congress, trying to have their voices heard, and it gets out of control. And this is how we end up where we're at. Because no one wants to, they want you to respect their rights, but nobody wants to respect your rights. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And communication between the right and the left is obviously broken down. I mean, obviously there's still some steadfast principles on both sides, or should be on both sides. But, we need to come together. Obviously there's certain things that we're never going to agree on. We're never going to agree on, abortion. That's it. I know for sure that and probably guns are the two ones that we're never going to agree on, no matter how much we talk about it, because either one believes it's a human and the other one doesn't believe it's human. So once you have black or white, there's really no way for gray to come into that.
Gray is important. Gray is very important.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, but I mean, there's certain things that you can't, just say, okay, let's just do it this way. There's no meeting in the middle most of the time. Most of the time I've ever heard coming to the abortion is like to save the life of the woman, which I completely agree with. Anything else, I don't agree with. So obviously it's a human. It's a human. It's a human. It has rights as much as the mother does, and we're not going to get into the abortion topic, but anyways,
It's another hour
still
and a
going down that rabbit hole. But yeah, see, I mean, there's certain issues I know that we're never going to get agree on. Maybe eventually we'll get. There is that little gray at the protection of the woman's life, but I see that still in gray. I don't think anything else is really gray.
So basically, in summary, I think that the country is spiraling out of control quickly. We are rapidly heading towards some kind of split, whether it's amicable or whether it's violent. We're heading towards some split. I don't think it isn't salvageable. I think it is salvageable, but people need to learn to behave and treat each other with decency and respect, and start seeing things from other people's perspectives, and having leadership right now that is doing everything they possibly can to put a divide in between everybody. I mean, we're coming up with new labels every day to separate each other and put each other in groups and demonize one side or the other. And having those people in power is not helping. So
that's what you need. You need people to unify, not just divide. Because that's all this has been for the past, as long as I've been in politics, or been involved in researching and looking at politics. It's just been an increasing divide. But I definitely don't think that separation is applicable and should not happen. I don't care how divisive it gets. I think we should all stand up on the world stage and say, yeah, we're Americans. We're going to stay Americans. We're not going to split into two, because when you split into two, then you can start splitting into 1,000.
It's a recipe for disaster. And before you know
every foreign adversary is going to be like, oh, sweet. Now we got 2 armies to deal with. Oh, no, now we got 3. Maybe we can get 1 or 2 of them on our side. That's just, I see it's a recipe for disaster, honestly.
Instead of 50 states, you end up with 50 small countries on one continent, and and they're constantly at odds with each other. And there's just, would it solve a couple of our problems to split and, make it right and left in their own little countries? Would it solve a bunch of our problems? Sure. But honestly, I think wholeheartedly that for every one problem it's solved, it would create 50. I don't think it's feasible. I don't think it's responsible, and I don't think it's smart. I think it's absolutely, both Republicans and conservatives that are pushing for it. I think you may not be an idiot, but this idea makes you look stupid. It's a bad idea. A bad idea.
Very bad idea, especially on the United States is protected by 2 oceans. If we were to split, which I'm assuming definitely California would be gone, and probably more of the northeastern states will be leaving. Then we got 1. It's not feasible. I mean, we need to come together, find something that we're common, have a national identity, so we can go to the world stage and say, yes, we're Americans, and not say, oh, we need to divide, because it's just going to end up more division, and then more possibly even more fighting, honestly, because what happens if every state, like you were saying, all 50 states end up their own country, and then California has a resource that Texas wants. Obviously Texas is gonna, I see a split as just more war. I don't think we could ever be allies to the point where we might as well just be one. If we're going to split the country into 2, we might as well just be one allies and just deal with each individual state as it is, and not imposing California laws in Texas or Alabama, Florida, and vice versa.
when people don't stop and think of the negative side effect that's going to come of it. They don't stop and think about, travel. They don't stop and think about distribution. They don't stop and think about taxing, because if you're your own separate little country, things that you used to get from the East Coast that delivered over to the West Coast, now instead of getting it for free because it's part of the same country, now you got to pay import export taxes. You got to pay, like, dude, there's so many brand new problems that would arise that are senseless, needless problems.
Yeah, resources would go scarce if one state decided to stop shipping products to another state. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. I think even the idea of splitting into two is still such a disastrous effect. Because I mean, even during our first Civil War, the North had the industry and the South had the agriculture, and each other were trying to have allies overseas to supply them with the thing that the other states did supply. So I think it'd just be one giant resource war at that point. And, obviously these bigger countries like China and Russia are going to come in and start taking some states back. They're taking some states or allying with certain. It just seems too much like a headache. Most small nations that are the sizes of states have big allies, such as the United States or Russia or China, or have grouped together like the European Union, but they're still allied with the United States. So it's just a power struggle, I think it would be. And then you got all these foreign actors that would, start carving up their piece of the United States if that happened.
Well, and these people over in like California think that their taxes are high now. Wait until you separate into your own country, and now all of a sudden you're footing the bill for your brand new government, and you're getting taxed out your ass trying to recover, because obviously splitting from seceding into like two separate countries would be a huge financial burden on everybody, and you would have to pick up the extra slack. You're going to be taxed out of your house and home. You're going to be taxed out of eating. Like, it's not something that you're just going to go, okay, we're done. Like, it's not that simple. Like, it's not that simple. And if it doesn't turn bloody, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be a difficult road, and things are going to fall apart and crumble way worse than you imagine before they get any better.
Yeah. So I feel like this is just a temporary thing. I'd much rather a temporary thing than a long-term, resource shortage, food shortage. Because if Texas decides it wants to become its own state, or our own country, then they can export all the oil. So is Alaska. But then all the other states are footing that bill. It's like we had a common country where Texas can't say, yeah, I'm not going to supply any gas for California or New York or whatever state they decide to.
It's a shit show. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but I honestly think that like you said, this is just a power struggle, and people are just talking trash right now, and it'll blow over, because nobody really wants a war. Nobody really wants to fight, and one side really wants to fight less than they pretend like they do. So because they are not ready and they're not prepared. So
usually the loudest people are like the minority. So I don't ever think this country is going to go socialist, but even though there's like maybe two people. Yeah, right. But anyways, those are my final thoughts. Definitely a bad idea. I don't care if you're right or left. That's a bad idea.
Agreed.
So any more thoughts on that?
No, I think I probably put out way more thoughts than I intended. So like we'll keep it there. I'm looking at our clock and I'm like, I should probably keep it there. We'll call it. I'm sure the discussion will come up again at some point.
Yeah, or if people like I kind of like alternative history, so I like to say what if, and then we'll probably do something in the future if people show interest in it. or drop it if it's not. It doesn't matter to me.
Fair. So, having said that, I'm gonna give you our usual little spiel of liking and subscribing, and hitting all the social medias and all that. And we appreciate that we've still been getting some subscribers here and there despite our leave of absence. So we appreciate it. And I appreciate Brian not being more unbearable about the Alabama win. So congratulations for being the better person. Good job. It didn't start out like that, but during the game, but good job by the end. Very, very humble and very respectable. So good job.
It was a good game. I enjoy a good game.
So
So I kind of don't watch all the blowouts because it was kind of like boring. But I like the Florida game. And there's some other pretty tough opponents we're going to come up against. So
I mean, not FSU, but that's fine. That's a whole different discussion. So, but usual like, subscribe, and notification bell. Just turn everything on, because otherwise you're going to miss something, and you don't want to do that. So, if there's no other final thoughts from Brian,
nope.
We'll catch you on the next one.